Recording. There we go. So I'm Tony Maxey. I'm with the Virginia Poverty Law Center. And thank you so much for your interest in joining this morning's coffee chat about the recent lawsuit, class action lawsuit against the Virginia Employment Commission. Before we kick it off to Steve Fishbach, who's going to provide an overview of why that was filed and where things stand at the moment and next steps, just wanted to state that this is not going to be the right venue to answer any type of questions you may have about personal unemployment claims. I'm also going to keep everybody on mute, not because I don't wish to have people's participation, but it's going to cut down on background noises. And then later when we get to the Q&A session, I will explain how to best get yourself off of mute to ask questions. But just to go back, this is not going to be the right venue to answer questions about your personal unemployment claims that may still be outstanding. If you do have questions, you can visit our website, www.vplc.org, and there's a tab at the top that you can click on that'll provide more information and some resources about how best to address your own situation. I'll also put some of this in the chat as we move forward. The only other thing I will say before is that this is Steve Fishbach. He is our Director of Litigation, and I'm just going to turn it over to him.
Great, thanks. Is the audio okay?
Yes.
Great, awesome. Hi, well, good morning. My name is Steve Fishbach, Litigation Director at VPLC. As Tony mentioned, this is not really the place for answering individual questions about claims, largely because I don't consider myself an expert in unemployment insurance law. But I was heavily involved in the class action that I'm about to describe and can answer questions, about that particular case. So the class action is called Cox versus Hess. Ms. Cox was a claimant and Ms. Hess is the commissioner of the VEC. So that's why the case has that name. And the case was filed by a number of legal aid law firms, including VPLC, Legal Aid Works based in Fredericksburg, and the Legal Aid Justice Center based here. We also had the participation of Pro Bono Counsel, Len Bennett and Christy Kelly. And this team is responsible for the information that and really very quick victory that I'm about to describe. So as early as last summer, the issue of VEC's slowness in processing unemployment insurance claims came to light. And there were a number of legal aids that were having this particular problem showing up. And we decided that we were going to try to put together a legal team to address the problem. In researching the case, we learned that of the 53 jurisdictions that the US Department of Labor keeps track of, 53 because you've got like Puerto Rico and the Mariana Islands, but there are 53 jurisdictions and Virginia was number 53. So we had some pretty compelling data to show that, and by number 53, I meant in terms of processing and just making what's called non-monetary determinations. In other words, if there's an eligibility issue other than whether you've got enough earnings, that is what a non-monetary determination is. And it is made by a VEC deputy, which is the first level reviewer of an unemployment claim. So we had the data to show that Virginia was doing a really bad job on this score, and then proceeded to construct legal theories to support the case. The other problem that we were learning about was that people started getting money and then were cut off with no explanation, no notice. And for both people who were applying for benefits and people who got cut off, VEC's telephone system was a complete failure. It was not able, people couldn't get through and get answers to their questions. So a number of people were, just spending hours on the phone on hold, trying to speak to someone to get information. And when they were lucky enough to get it, they couldn't, no one could tell them anything. All they would be told is, there's an issue on your claim. So as I said, we filed suit in April, I think on April 15th, which was normally tax day. And we got a very quick response from the judge who we drew when we filed the case. The case is pending in the Eastern District of Virginia's in federal court in Richmond. We drew Judge Hudson, and shortly after the case was filed, the VEC filed a motion for more time to answer the case, and which we opposed because we had sent the complaint to VEC beforehand and had been working with them or trying to work with them for months to address these concerns, only to have our suggestions rebuffed or ignored. So when the VEC asked for more time, Judge Hudson said, I'll give you a few more days, but I want to see you in my chambers so we can talk. So Judge Hudson brought us all together and said, there's a problem, it needs to be fixed right away, and you all figure out how to fix it. So over the course, we had a series of both face-to-face and remote mediations, and we came out with this pretty impressive order that we hope is going to address the problem. So again, the case had two classes to it. One were people who had applied and heard nothing. And then the other class was, and we would call those like the initial claim or our delay class. And the other group of people were for people who started getting money and then had it cut off. That's our continued claims class. Mm-hmm. So the settlement that we were able to get from VEC addresses both of those two issues. So first off is most of the relief relates to the people who've been waiting with no response. So what we were able to do was to get VEC to hire more people, more deputies, and they are now under a court order to get rid of 95% of the backlog by Labor Day, which is pretty huge because before there was no closure for people. At least now there's going to be some closure. So the VEC reported to the court that there were 92,000 claimants awaiting adjudication as of May 10th. So under the settlement, they're going to have to speed up the adjudication of claims. They are supposed to hit 10,000 a week by the end of June, and then 20,000 a week by the end of July. And again, by Labor Day, the 92,000 cases are supposedly all going to be addressed. We are getting reports weekly from the VEC as to the number of adjudications that they've made. And over the last 3 weeks, it's been roughly 6,250. That's just a rough number. So we're not at 10,000 a week yet, but we will be getting, as I said, we get weekly reports from them so that we'll know if there's going to be a problem and whether Judge Hudson is going to need to get back involved. In addition to speeding up the adjudication of claims, the VEC is also taking certain steps to identify particular problems that have a very quick fix to them. So one group of people are claimants wouldn't know whether they fit this category or not, but there are some claims were flagged for adjudication because there was incomplete information. There wasn't an employer listed. There wasn't earnings listed. So the VEC is going to try to identify all of those and quickly get the missing information and then process the claim. So that's one thing that they're going to do. Another, and this is particularly important, is they're going to take a look at all of the claims flagged for adjudication for what the term is for a voluntary quit. In other words, under Virginia's unemployment insurance laws, if you quit your job, you're not eligible for benefits. Now, as many of you may know, last year, as part of the CARES Act, there was a variety of new unemployment benefits made. One of them was Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA or PUA. And that class of benefits was set up for people who left their jobs for reasons due to COVID. Most typically, parents who had to leave their job because they didn't have childcare, because their kids' schools were closed and they couldn't leave them at home all day. So that's just one of the COVID reasons that you could qualify for PUA. But instead of just automatically putting people on PUA, applicants had to wait for a denial, a deputy to determine they weren't ineligible, and then they were told, okay, now go apply for PUA. So now what the VEC's got to do is it's got to flag all of the claims, voluntary quit claims, and then they're going to send each claimant a short questionnaire to find out what the reason was for their leaving. And if it was for one of the COVID reasons for PUA, they will automatically deny them for unemployment and screen them for eligibility for PUA. So that will speed up the process for those folks. Let me now also turn to the other class, which is for people who were cut off. We tried to address that issue with the VEC last December, or actually last November, and in December they agreed to address it. There is some Labor Department guidance that says that if someone starts getting benefits, there's a presumption of continued eligibility until a deputy determines that someone is not eligible. So they should have never started cutting people off to begin with until their claim was sent to a deputy. So in December, the VEC said, oh, you're right, we'll fix that. But they didn't. And because we had a number of people who had contacted us about that issue, and then they were not getting the relief that the VEC promised. And that's why we brought that lawsuit, brought that particular class into this lawsuit. So the resolution for that class is that the VEC is going to go back, do another scan, and have everybody paid by the 15th of June. So we'll know, we'll be getting reports too about that in the next few days, because they've got to do this. And so that's a summary of what we were able to do here. I understand I was supposed to get this done in about 10 minutes so as to enable questions. So that's a basic overview of the case.
Thanks, Steve. So we will open it up for a Q&A right now. Just again, a gentle reminder that we're unable to really answer any questions about your specific unemployment claims. And I've placed in the chat a resource that you can download that can help you walk through your next steps as to those claims. You have two ways to ask a question. One is to just unmute yourself. And there's a ton of people wishing to ask on my computer at the bottom, there is a reaction tab. And if you click on it, it'll say raise hand. So you see me that I've raised my hand. And if you wish to use that function, I can then call on you. So we're now open for questions. You also have the ability to put your question in the chat if you don't wish to do either of the other two methods. Or you just want Steve to keep talking?
I mean, I can. I just wanted to really like touch the highlights of this. I mean, I could go in. Okay, I got a question. So if people got cut off and haven't been paid, they should contact us. They can contact me, and all these questions just started popping up. Excuse me one second. Let me just wait for them all to go away. They should contact us immediately because we can get them relief because the VEC would be in contempt of a court order, and then we could, get those claims addressed. And again, that's for people. It's not just for anyone who gets cut off. It's for people who were receiving benefits. The money disappeared suddenly and without an explanation. There are now going to be some additional things that people need to do when they file their weekly claim, including certifying that they've made applications for 2 jobs in the prior week. So if you fall into that bucket, that's not good. That's not going to be something that we can assist with, at least in this case. Okay.
Steve, what's the best contact information?
For me, email me at steve@vplc.org. Again, steve@vplc.org. Now, I just want to go into the questions. Okay, so question from basically co-counsel Ann Klockner at law. What happens if the VEC doesn't do what it's supposed to do? Well, it depends on what they're not doing, I think is the first thing I'd want to say. But I mean, regardless of what they're not doing, we go back to Judge Hudson, who could potentially hold the VEC in contempt and order further relief. So that's why it's important if we hear from people that are still waiting, until we get closer to Labor Day, there's probably not a lot we can do for that class unless the reports are coming back and we see that the VEC is falling way short of its 10,000 claims a week or 20,000 by the end of July. So that's what we can do in the event that the VEC doesn't follow the order. The next question was outstanding. Okay, so the next question is sort of like the one that I already answered. If you're okay. So the next question about outstanding issues, if not paid by the June 15th. Again, the June 15th deadline only applies to people who are in the continued claims class. In other words, you got money, it suddenly disappeared, and you are told that there's an issue on your claim and that's why it disappeared. So I hope that clarifies it. It's not for everybody who doesn't get paid by the 15th. Okay, good question from Tony. Will people who've been affected be automatically added to the class action? Answer is yes. We've got, after we filed suit, a number of people contacted all of the organizations that were involved with the case about how do I join the class action? There's nothing you need to do to join the class action because you're already a class member. If you've applied for benefits and nothing happened, you're a class member. We can make inquiries to the VEC about specific people who fall within the classes, and we are turning over names and contact information to the VEC in the hopes that those folks will get an answer faster. There's no guarantee that that would happen, but it could happen. So we have been, sending over names to VEC of organization of people that have reached out to us. Labor Day, next question. Labor Day only applied to deputy level. Answer, yes. So maybe here's a good place where I can explain the application process and how what we did affects it and how what we did does not, and how what we did was not affected. So you apply for benefits. The VEC will screen the application. If they detect that there may be an eligibility issue other than earnings, those are the folks whose claims have been flagged for adjudication. And so they have to see a deputy. And if a deputy is not needed, they'll just pay benefits. And a lot of people, that's what happened. And Virginia actually had a decent record when it came to paying people who didn't have issues timely. The next thing that happens is the deputy reviews the case and makes a decision. And if the claimant loses, then they have a right to a first level appeal. So the next problem that we're actually looking at now is for people who are waiting on appeals. Because there's so many of them, and it may take months and years for people to even get that far in the process. And then there's a second level appeal as well. So it may take a very long time to get to the second backlog of cases, which are these appeals.
Steve, I'm going to read the question since we're recording so that if the chat doesn't show up in the recording, people will, who are listening will know the question. So do you know how long it will take for people that did get money after they were cut off, but were told they may have to pay it back to know if they will indeed have to pay the VEC back? Is that a Labor Day deadline as well?
No. Meaning, is the question, do they have to, by Labor Day, tell people that they owe money to the VEC? If that's the question, the answer is no. The VEC can at any time send a claimant a notice that they've been overpaid. So that's a whole separate problem that our lawsuit doesn't address. But we know that too is going to be a major issue for people with claims. So, it may be that someone waited forever, or 7, 8, 9, 10 months to get benefits, only to be told later that they've been overpaid and they have to pay it back. And one of the places where this is going to come up is for people who are really eligible for the PUA, but were getting traditional unemployment for some reason. This is particularly for folks in the continued claims class, because they started getting money, they were cut off, they had to have their benefits restored by this order. And then the VEC goes, oops, no, you're really eligible for PUA, and then you'll get an overpayment notice. But what the VEC should be doing is crediting the unemployment payments to the PUA benefits, it's not a complete wash, but it'll make a lot of the overpayment go away.
Steve, this gentleman has his hand raised.
Sure, go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Imhotep Muhammad. I have people, I guess, in this area that I live in, and like I was just speaking to recently. I'm glad this meeting came about. I just heard about it just a matter of minutes ago, but they've been telling me, like, as of yesterday, they got cut off yesterday. So unemployment is still cutting people off. You said that if this the fact of them reestablishing people, why are they still cutting people off?
Okay. People could lose their benefits for a lot of reasons.
Excuse me. Hold on. I'm not talking about losing them. They're cutting them off, telling them that they got to file paperwork saying stuff like they got to send in certain information. And until it does, they're sending a letter saying if the letter's not back in a certain amount of time, right, or that they have to send in, like, say, for instance, a social security card or the ID and stuff like that to prove what's the name, but their benefits will run, but they're not running, they're cutting them off still. Someone told me about this yesterday.
Okay, so that situation is very different because the claimants are hearing something from VEC saying, send us something. The class that we represented were people whose money disappeared and nothing, but that's all that happened. It just stopped. No correspondence from VEC explaining anything, no requests for any additional information. As I said, there are a number of reasons that unemployment benefits can stop. I would suggest that you refer some of the people that you've spoken to with this particular problem to the local legal aid program where you live or where the people that you have contacted you live. And that information, as Tony mentioned at the beginning of our talk today, that information, like how to contact the legal aid program, is on that tab at the top of our website. So that's what I would recommend that you have done here, because then those individual claimants can be better screened for what the issue is. If it turns out that they belong in the class, then the legal aid folks will refer them back to us. But if there's another thing going on, which is what I suspect is the case here, then the advocate can help with that particular issue.
All right, thank you.
And Tony put into the chat, I'll read it off. There's a phone number that can be called to direct people to their local legal aid program. And that phone number is 1-866-534-5243. There was another question. What if you received nothing? Are you in the early cutoff? Okay, if you applied and you received nothing and you're still filing your weekly claims, you are in the delayed class, meaning that your claim is part of the 92,000 that have to be addressed by Labor Day. So again, if your claim is not getting addressed now, they have until Labor Day to have it addressed or largely addressed. But we will be monitoring their progress through the weekly reports that we receive that will tell us how many claims were adjudicated that week. And if it turns out that come, July, maybe the first week of July, if they're still at the 6,200 a week level that they are at now, we go back to Judge Hudson and get additional relief for people. We will be passing on names to the VEC, but passing on a name is no guarantee that your claim will be heard any quicker.
Steve, I'm going to just interject very quickly that our coffee chats are a half an hour. We promise to start on time and end on time. That does not mean that if you still have questions or comments that Steve and I would not be willing to stay around for a few moments. However, it is 9:30, so we do want to bless and release those of you who would calendar just for this half hour. And I wish you a good day. Take care. And was there another question or no?
Yeah, there was from my colleague about a succinct way for them to identify their eligibility issue. There isn't one. I mean, I would just suggest that claimants just tell their story to people, because there are lots of different ways and lots of nuances to this work. The easiest thing is to just tell the story to us directly, and we may have some other questions as we go forward, but there's really no fast and easy thing, particularly because often the claimant themselves will not know what the problem is. So they may just know I applied and nothing happened. And that's what we've heard that constantly. So there's just no quick thing to answer the other question. And I think there was one more. If you've received nothing, are you in the early cutoff? No, you're in the other class. You're in, potentially you're in the delay class. Because if the cutoff, you would have started getting something. So if you applied and got nothing, then you're in the delay class.
Steve, this turn. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. I do have one more quick question. So if they still that calling in doing their filing over the thing, but they haven't received anything, they're in your class.
They're in the delay class.
The delay class.
As opposed to the continued claims class. I'm so sorry that I haven't made this clear. So again, for people who've applied and never received a dime and are just waiting, that's the delay class. For people who applied, they started getting some money and then it disappeared for no reason. They're likely to be in the continued claims class. But as I said, if they got cut off and they get something from VEC that explains something, they're probably not going to be in the continued claims class. But I really strongly urge you that for anyone who got cut off, they should get a hold of legal aid and have their individual problem assessed by a lawyer. So that's why we put that information out in the chat. Did that answer your question? I just want to make sure that I'm answering what you want to know.
Yeah, because I have a lot of friends and family members that that I just spoke to recently, and yes, as of yesterday, some of them got cut off, but they still been doing their weekly
weekly claims.
Yeah, their weekly claims. Then there's some that's been cut off and it's still letting them do their weekly claims, but they haven't received benefits. So and it's like and not just family members, friends, whatever. These people, and I'm imagining this is happening to a lot of people. These people now don't have no benefits at all coming in. They have children, and bills and everything else to pay. And you, as well as I know, landlords and and feeding kids, hungry children, they don't understand we don't have the money.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you actually mentioned that particular piece, because one thing I neglected to mention as part of the settlement is that the VEC is going to soon be informing everyone that's filed an application about how to access other forms of assistance. So if you have family members that are behind in their rent, they can access the state rental assistance programs. There's also programs with you to help pay utility bills, food stamps. All of that information is on on our website. So you may want to pass that on to them in the meantime, just so that they can access some other financial benefits. But I'm not sure where you're located, but if you're here in Richmond, I would recommend that you have your family members contact either the Legal Aid Justice Center or Central Virginia Legal Aid. They both have very capable attorneys who handle unemployment.
Okay, well, I'm here in Suffolk and Portsmouth area, but I appreciate that. My name is Imhotep anyway, Steve. How you doing? I apologize for that.
Oh, no. Your name actually shows up on my screen, but it's hard for me there's so many, it's like Hollywood Squares. So it's one of the downsides to this. So the legal aid there are actually two legal aid programs in that part of the state. There's Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia, who's based in Norfolk, covers Portsmouth. And then there's Virginia Legal Aid Society that has a Suffolk office. So it sort of depends on where in the Tidewater region your family members are.
Okay, so one is Eastern Virginia and the other is Tidewater?
The other one is the Virginia Legal Aid Society. Okay. They are based in Suffolk. Okay,
and the other one is Eastern
Legal
Virginia.
Aid Society of Eastern Virginia. They have offices in Norfolk. I think there are other offices, maybe in Newport News.
Okay, so there's nothing really for like the what's that?
Norfolk, Eastern Shore,
Norfolk and Portsmouth.
Yeah, that's the Legal Aid Society of Eastern Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we are just kind of coming to a natural close here. Once again, I do encourage everybody to go to VPLC.org and just click the unemployment resource button up top. It's a very nice PDF that gives you the telephone number for the legal aids, as well as you can have a link to get over to a SNAP calculator to see if people are eligible for SNAP benefits. It also lists our various helplines. We have a utility helpline. We have an eviction helpline. It's a really informative document. And again, Steve mentioned that you can contact him at steve@vplc.org if you have any issues with getting the document. However, the recording will be sent later this afternoon if you've registered, and I will include the document in the email as well. So I wish everyone a wonderful Thursday, and hope to see you at our next coffee chat. Take care.